Hello. So today I want to talk about failing, um, because I don't know anything that will strike fear into the hearts of recovering perfectionists and overachievers faster than the idea of failing. And I get it, failing is really scary, particularly if you have these kind of perfectionist tendencies. Because I think one of the reasons failing becomes so scary is because our whole identity is tied up in achieving. Yeah, if yeah, my whole kind of like way of interacting with the world is through the illusion that I know what I'm doing and that yeah, I'm like constantly achieving and doing things, then the idea of failing, the idea of making a mistake becomes catastrophic. Yeah, the consequences of failing are so high because it threatens my very identity, that is the core of who I am and the ways that I keep myself safe in the world. So of course failing feels scary. But I noticed that we recovering perfectionists, overachievers, control freaks, we set ourselves up to fail. And one of the ways that we do this is we love the binary. This is a classic sign of perfectionist thinking, is binary thinking, kind of black and white, all or nothing type of thinking. And that has us set everything up as either a success or a failure. You know, there's nothing in between. And I get it, like there's a simplicity in being able to categorize things in that way. You know, our brains do this automatically. We have all sorts of biases and heuristics. We're assumption making machines. And so life feels really easy when things fit into neat boxes and kind of either or. But the problem is that the threshold for success is really high. Yeah, if I'm only labeling things as good or bad, then I only have two choices. You know, it's either good or it's bad. So that's incredibly limiting. And the threshold for things to make it into good or into success is incredibly high because I'm a perfectionist. And it's not that I explicitly expect things to be perfect, but you know, if I think back to like my school days, for example, I used to call my mum in tears because I was worried that I had failed. And what I meant was that I didn't get an A. So for me, success meant getting an A or an A star, and getting anything less than that was failing. Whereas the exam system works on like if you get anything over a C, you've passed. Anything below that, you is a fail. But even that language, I don't think is particularly helpful. So the chances of me failing, the chances of not reaching the standards that I have set myself are incredibly high because those standards are so completely unrealistic. So I'm setting myself up for failure because the way that I am approaching life makes it much more likely that things that I experience are going to end up in the failure box rather than the success box. And then, of course, because my identity is caught up in me succeeding and doing well, every time I don't, which is a lot of the time because that's how I set things up, I cause myself this existential crisis. Who am I? Who am I if I'm not achieving? You know, the consequences of that failure, of making a mistake, of it not being good enough, are catastrophic. It can really knock me out for days, and they really set me up for that self-brutalization, give my inner critic a lot of ammunition, and it leaves me stuck. Because if I've tried something and it's failed, then what do I do? Because of this identity thing that I've spoken about, suddenly my nervous system's activated, I'm stressed, I'm beating myself up, and nobody ever had a creative thought from that place. Yeah, so I've led myself to this place where I'm stuck and like, now what do I do? And 9 times out of 10 for me, that's like quit, move on, and find something different to do. Yeah, abandon that course that I tried to launch and it didn't work. Quit my job, done that before. Move countries, done that before. So yeah, because where else do I go from that place of failure? There is a different way of doing this. And that is rather than setting, and there's a different way of framing what you're doing in life. So rather than this quite subtle, implicit framing of everything being good or bad, success or failure, there is a way to open up the nuance, the gray space between the black and the white, the middle way in between these things. And that is to embody more of a sense of experimenting and curiosity. And what I mean by that is rather than setting things up as like, well, this means good, this means bad, in this very implicit way that we tend to, I really like to ask questions. So it's like I'm presenting myself with a hypothesis, and then the experience either gives me evidence for my hypothesis or it gives me evidence against it. And that leads me to a place of like, okay, well, I tried this, it didn't work, or I didn't get the outcome that I expected. I wonder why. And what would it be like to try that again with some different parameters, to try something different? Because then it becomes a learning experience. And let's face it, as perfectionists love to say that we love to learn, and yet so often, because we don't like making mistakes, we don't. We don't set ourselves up to actually learn from what we're doing and to improve and to iterate and get better over time, rather than expecting us to be. I definitely expect myself to just be able to do things straight off the bat. So I love to ask myself questions of like, what if? What if I did it like this? What might happen? Or how would it feel to do it in this way? And suddenly I'm opening myself up to curiosity. I can feel it, just even asking the question to you now, like it feels so different in my body. Yeah, I suddenly feel open to possibility. I can be more creative. And then rather, if something didn't work in the way that I'd hoped it to, because I still have hope, I still have intention and expectations, that's okay. But rather than it being this catastrophic thing that leaves me stuck, it's like, oh, now I've got more data. Okay, it didn't feel good to do it like that. That didn't have the outcome that I wanted it to. So what's next? How would I like to do this differently next time? What can I learn from this? I don't know how to finish. um, yeah, I would be curious to hear what you've taken from this. So rather than setting yourself up to fail by the way that you're framing activities, um, what would it be like to, what would it be like to ask yourself more questions, to set yourself more little experiments and to learn as you go, and to genuinely enjoy the process of learning. Radical, radical. So yeah, please comment below. Let me know what you're thinking, how this feels to you. If you give us a go, what comes of it. And yeah, I'd really love to see you next time. Thanks so much.